So good evening again, everyone. I'm here to give an extra seminar session on my care, my story. I apologize for the technical error anyway, but I hope you can see some of the slides a bit clear. So to talk about my care, my story, I would like to say a few words in the first place. Who am I and what is my care? So I am an Ethiopian. My name is Mariamawit Yonathan Yeshak. So Yonathan is my father's name, Yeshak is my grandfather's name. That's how we write names here in Ethiopia. And I'm a married woman and a mother of 3. And my career, which I would like to talk about a bit today, is pharmacognosy, a researcher, a PhD in pharmacognosy, and I'm a university faculty, to put it in a simple way, in few words. And my story and my career run between 2 countries, and I would like to talk about the story and the care as a tale of these 2 countries. Ethiopia, where it all began, and Sweden, where I found myself, in Ethiopia, where it again continued. And the outline of my presentation actually follows again this scheme. So when I say it all began in Ethiopia, what do I mean? I was born and raised in Addis Ababa, the capital city of Ethiopia. And my experiences, my life and education experiences are quite in a closed circle. I studied at the Addis Ababa University, both my bachelor's and my master's. And I was hired as a graduate assistant in the same university after my bachelor's. And shortly after I got my MSc degree in pharmacognosy, I had to leave for my PhD to Sweden. I was quite a young girl by then, and as I said, my experiences were just in Addis as a town or as a city, and in Addis Ababa University, both for education and work experience. But that was an important foundation, which helped me got into Sweden, where I say I have found myself. Sweden was my first country abroad. That was my first time to travel abroad. It was very emotional, actually, when I left Addis and when I landed in Arlanda. And well, it's a bit silly to say, but when I was in Addis, still while I was doing my master's degree, I was living with my grandmother. My immediate family live in the US, still do live in the US. So I was quite close to my grandmother. I was living with her, and you can imagine how living with a grandmother would be. Doing house errands or any life routines were not my responsibility. So from living at the comfort of my grandmother's, I completely moved to a life by my own. I had to cook, I had to do house errands, I had to shop and everything. And lifestyle was new, the weather was completely new. It was a new society. I had to communicate with new language, trying, of course, and the new list goes on. But one thing for sure was my career path was clearing. First, okay, I was a pharmacist. I did my PhD in pharmacognosy. I was thinking, okay, maybe it's time to leave the university now, join the industry or another research institute. But then I had this PhD scholarship. I moved to Sweden. So my career path was starting to clear. Okay, I will be going back to my university. I will be a faculty, and pharmacognosy will be the path I will be going as a branch of pharmacy. And in going through this, my foundation, as I say, is very important. Even though it was a very limited experience, it helped me a lot, I would say. And all the challenges I faced in Sweden were actually needed. And those two things made me realize the potential within me, and I have come to find myself in Sweden. And in doing so, or in this process, the role family and friends and colleagues played was very invaluable. You will realize it more when I come to the highlight of my PhD life. So my career between the two places benefited from both places. First, Ethiopia provided me a fertile ground for pharmacognosy, my research. For those of you probably who are new to this very technical jargon word, I'm sorry I didn't explain what it was at the beginning. Pharmacognosy is a branch of pharmacy which studies natural products, the activity and the chemistry of natural products. And these natural products, as we refer to them, we mainly refer to plants, as plants provide the lion's share of the bioactive natural products today. But of course, pharmacognosy is branching to marine natural products these days and microbes and everywhere. So for studying natural products, we rely on traditional medicine a lot. It's our main lead towards finding new active molecules. So Ethiopia provided me indeed a fertile ground for this research because there is a rich traditional medicinal knowledge embedded within the society. So when we are doing survey, for example, going out to the field, we will collect a lot of information about medicinal plants, and then we will collect those plants and bring them to the lab and study them, study their activity, claimed activity, and their chemistry as well. So by being also a biodiversity hotspot, botanically speaking, these two things are pillars for pharmacognosy, which as an Ethiopian or as a researcher living in Ethiopia, I enjoyed a lot. And I had seasoned professors in the field as mentors. In the field I'm in pharmacognosy. So my immediate mentor, for example, had more than 25 years of research experience in the field. So I had, I would say I had a very sound foundation of pharmacognosy when I left for Sweden. And for my research, my career, Sweden opened an endless opportunity to explore, you know, having this rich background or rich fertile ground. Even the plant I was working on was an Ethiopian medicinal plant. So when I arrived in Sweden, well, many doors were open or opportunity was open to explore because the pedagogic philosophy was quite conducive. Those of you who live in Sweden or who have done your research in Sweden would understand what I'm meaning here. So I was given the opportunity to think, I would say, and with the state-of-the-art infrastructure in the laboratory, and again quite seasoned mentors in the field, I had a very good opportunity in doing a lot of research on the plant material I took. And the whole experience in that laboratory, within that group, and the life out of the laboratory changed my worldview. This, I'm sure you would understand from being a girl with limited experience in one city, in one institute, going to Uppsala, where a lot of multicultural ties are there and everything. So my whole world, my whole view of the world was changed. And when I say my career, I want to highlight my PhD journey because it's my PhD study which gave me the experience in the two countries. It was a sandwich program, so I had to spend about 4 months every year at my home institute and 8 months in Sweden. This was a very important experience, I would say. now when I see my colleagues living for, not a sandwich program, but a complete full scholarship abroad, I see that their ties get a bit loose with their home institute, and some of them really do not enjoy their stay, for example, abroad a lot, or their stay here completely in Ethiopia without having an exposure to another country. In my case, as I said, it was a sandwich program, and it gave me an opportunity to be home every year for about 3 to 4 months. Hence, my ties with my home institution and my social ties even in my city were kept strong. And I enjoyed my stay at both places without missing, I would say. So when I was in Sweden, I would miss my family here, but then I'm coming back, so I'm not homesick. And when I'm in Ethiopia, I don't miss Sweden a lot because I'm going back. So this was quite a unique experience, and I think the sandwich model has this benefit. Another thing which happened in my PhD journey was I got married in between and got 2 daughters actually during the first half of the 4 years. So the second year, after I completed the first year, I came back to Addis. I got married, and when I went back, I was already pregnant with my first daughter, and my second one came a year and a half. She's a year and a half younger than elder sister. It was a blessing in life, but it brought its own challenge. That's why I would rather bring it as the highlight of my care. Being a PhD student and a mother of 2, living abroad, and my husband was living in Addis. So when I was in Uppsala, I had my 2 daughters with me. I had to do my PhD studies and, of course, take care of my daughters as well. I would say that was the highlight of my care. It was a challenge worth living, and it was possible, of course, because I had a constant support of friends and family, and the Swedish system is quite family friendly. I could send my kids to daycare, doggies, and during the daytime, and I can do my PhD work. I can go to the lab, and then I wouldn't have to think of, who's taking care of my children, are they being fed, and everything. And the whole system, the whole Swedish system, I should appreciate and be grateful at this point that it helped me accomplish being a PhD student and a mother of 2 at the same time, living alone. And my supervisor and the whole team were very helpful. My Swedish supervisor and my Ethiopian supervisor as well. And the scholarship was SIDA funded through International Science Program. And they had this special sort of unwritten regulation. If a woman gets pregnant or starts to have family, they would have to discontinue the scholarship because, I had my children there, and the Swedish system, the children had to be given a special allowance to be able to stay in Sweden, and SIDA doesn't cover that. So automatically you will have to leave, or you will have to leave your children back home. And I didn't want to leave my children back home. And ISP, the International Science Program, appealed to SIDA, and SIDA was willing to give me a chance. So they had to pay extra to my children, and my children stayed the whole time with me. The most important thing this experience brought to me as a person and for my career actually is that I learned a lot from it, and it changed me for good. When I left, I was a young, rather soft girl, but then I became an assertive young woman through that experience. When I mean assertive, I took time, I took a moment and decided to enjoy each moment rather than, count the challenges. And then I had to make necessary life adjustments. I had to buy a car, and I had to get a Swedish driving license to make life easier. And I had to start living. I had to learn to live in a military-like discipline with strict routine. And this reflected in my care again, in my care nowadays, even when I'm back, and in my general lifestyle, in my story. And of course, it doesn't mean that it was always cozy and rosy. There are moments where I really wanted to quit, especially when my grandmother passed away. I said, okay, Mariamawit, this is the time to quit. Come back to your family, be a good wife and stay home and raise your kids and work with your master's degree. But then again, I say my supervisor, my Ethiopian supervisor, wouldn't let me choose that. And my husband also pushed, and he said, no, you can do it. You can go back and finish. And well, that helped. And I finished my PhD studies, and the story again continued back in Ethiopia. I returned home after almost 7 years because I had this 1 full year maternity leave per child, so 2 years. And yeah, all in all, I set foot in Uppsala in November 2005, and then I came back to Ethiopia for good in July 2012. So nearly 7 years, and then I came back home with my PhD completed, and I rejoined my university, which gave me a tenured position. Well, I loved my life in Sweden. As I said earlier, I decided to enjoy each moment, which I did actually, and I gave all the opportunity that they could have gotten to my children while they were in that country. But then I was also equally very happy to be back home, as they say. Blood is thicker than water. And there were questions I had to face by that time, which were running in my head, where these questions were like, will it be a soft landing? I mean, how would, coming to for 3 to 4 months a year and coming for good are two different things. I was thinking, will it be a soft landing career-wise? Will it be a soft landing even social-wise? As Africans, you understand, I'm sure, how important our social ties are. So I was asking, will I even adjust socially? I'm a very different person now. When, looking back, the Mariamawit who left and the Mariamawit who's returning, those were two very different people. And I was asking, will I even adjust socially? And what about my children? Because many people were trying to convince me to stay in Sweden, especially the diaspora, saying, this is a country where you can provide opportunity to your children. You're taking them back to Ethiopia where, exposures and experiences are very limited and so on. So I was thinking about that as well. But probably what is more important for this presentation, the question that's running in my head was, how would my research continue in the given infrastructure? Particularly that I was working on, I am still working actually on proteins, and we didn't have by that time some infrastructure needed for my research work. This was the question that was very important to ask. But well, anyway, I came back. It was quite a soft landing, I would say, and I adjusted socially, and I think my children are, happy to be here as well. And my research and my care, of course, I got a tenured position, and now I have reached the rank of associate professor at the Addis Ababa University. I got a grant from the International Science Program, which made a big difference. When I came back here, I didn't come empty-handed. They gave me a seed money to start my own research group. Being a fresh PhD graduate and starting your own group, how exciting that could be. But again, it gives you also a position, a strong position as a researcher coming back home in a country with a limited infrastructure. So I could buy a lot of instrument with those, and yeah, that fund, which is still there actually, is still making a big difference. We could also secure other local and collaborative grants. Collaborative grants means with international partners. But still, infrastructure-wise, we are not there where we want to be. But I learned to partner with others to fill gaps: local partners, regional partners, international partners. And if I look at my career now, well, it's not running at the pace as it was running when I was a PhD student. But the most important thing, when I was preparing this presentation, I was thinking, where is my career? And where is it actually taking me? And I can confidently say that I have the satisfaction of serving my country above all. And when I was an undergrad student, we had a lot of expat teachers. And due to some cultural and language gaps, we suffered a bit as students. And I made a promise once to myself, if I stay in this university, I make sure that the next generation of students wouldn't have to suffer from this. So by teaching some courses, for example, I'm living my word, and that gives me a satisfaction. And we are producing a lot of young men and women in the field as well, who are now university faculty. And being in this country, coming back, well, after having the tenured position and after still working actually as a research leader, I also got into administrative positions, which opened an opportunity for learning leadership, or having leadership again as one path to go. If I was not in Ethiopia, probably, if I wasn't back, I'm not sure if this door would have opened. So now, looking at my career, I'm a pharmacognosist serving my country, and my career has grown into a branch of leadership as well, which I'm very happy about. So this is, in short, what I have to say to you, and I think the rest we can develop it through discussion. And in summary, my story and my career started in Ethiopia. It developed in Sweden, and it still continues to grow in Ethiopia. And both places, both worlds, provided me opportunities and exposures, which otherwise I wouldn't have the chance to get. Through the processes, I came to learn, do my best in any situation, and enjoy the most out of both places, or any place I'm put at.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you very much for your attention.
Yes, thank you.
And I'm sorry for my voice. I recently recovered from COVID-19. That hence my voice.
Okay, we hear. Thank you very much. We have several questions for you, and I will let participants to share. Professor Arma have several questions, and I ask him to directly connect with you. Professor Arma. Please, could everyone can able to mute himself?
Okay,
Professor
thank
Arma?
you. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity, and thank you, Professor Mariamawit Yonathan, for this very interesting narrative regarding your career, your story. It's very, very insightful, and I believe I have a few questions that I want to really ask. what attracted you to pharmacognosy in the very first place?
Yeah, that's very interesting. I have said it once. As a child, I was quite attracted to plants, and I used to eat every plant, I would say. Grandmother was worried, and she told me that some could be toxic, and I could poison myself. And I was really surprised to think plants could be poisonous. And then I talked to my uncle, and he said, yeah, they contain chemicals in them and so on. They have this chemistry thing going in them and so on. So these things led me to study the chemistry of plants, or their effects on their biologic and pharmacologic effect of plants. So that's how I even though I didn't know the name pharmacognosy by then, I knew even as a 7th grader that I wanted to study plants, their chemistry and their effects.
This is very, very interesting. I asked that question because my experience back also in 2001 when I started my master's was also in relation to natural product chemistry, extracting active ingredients from plants and chemically modifying to see whether it will be much more active or potent than the original substance. So your experience is very, very important, and it resonates with me. If I may continue, what differences did you experience in terms of the way learning and delivery of learning when it comes to pharmacognosy is concerned? The differences you found between the Ethiopian experience and then the Swedish experience. What were the key differences in the approaches that they adapted when it comes to the pedagogy and then even the mode of teaching or doing research on pharmacognosy? It appears you are muted.
I'm sorry. So I may go a bit technical here. My experience in Ethiopia as a pharmacognosy student, as a graduate assistant as well, revolves quite in classical pharmacognosy. That crystals from your TLC plate, kind of pharmacognosy. And I had to do microscopy, quite the classical pharmacognosy, which is important actually. And fast forward, I went to Sweden, and then I was introduced to all these metabolomics like terms and the way pharmacognosy is done, the reverse pharmacology, all these new things came as opportunity to explore a medicinal plant. So when I was there, for example, doing HPLC on a piece of leaf, even without extracting it, all these were opportunities. But if you ask me about the pedagogic philosophy in general, I would say it was an eye-opener. It's a total eye-opener that I passed through the Swedish pedagogic system. All this problem-based learning, self-learning, and everything. I mean, in the interest of time and in the interest of not boring the others, I wouldn't prefer to go more technical than this.
Yeah, and what did you miss most when you were in Sweden?
Our food.
You were missing the injera.
How many of you know injera? Injera. I was missing
the injera. Yeah. That is natural. And how did you cope with the weather? Because I know the weather in Sweden is quite different. Uppsala is up north, so definitely you expect that the temperature will be quite low. How did you cope with the weather, the culture? Did you encounter any discrimination?
To start from your last question, no. I haven't encountered any discrimination. Actually, quite the opposite was true in my case. The group I was in, the community I was living with students in a student corridor, everyone was very welcoming and, trying to help me settle in. Regarding the weather, the temperature was not my problem. My problem was the dark. I arrived in October, late October, fine by that time. It was 12 hours day, 12 hours night, just as I'm used to in Addis. But come November, and it was suddenly dark in the middle of the day. And that was when I had to learn to strictly use my watch rather than the daylight to think of, time. When it was dark, I felt I had to go to bed. So yeah, the darkness was quite a challenge, but then you learn to enjoy that as
well. Yeah, so I don't want to monopolize the discussion and make it a dialogue. So I'll just ask my last question and then I'll be done. So you indicated that you are in administrative positions, and as a researcher, you need to do your core research, fulfill your research mandate, your obligations to your graduate students, your obligations to your track as a researcher. How do you really manage the role conflicts that arise from being in administrative position vis-a-vis your research work, your core research mandate?
Yeah, it's not fun. It's not fun to be in academic administrative position while you still want to be active in research. I had to take that position because of some coincidence that has happened, and it came on me before I was really prepared, or before my research group was ready to be delegated to graduate students. And it made me actually pay some years for my promotion, for example. But now I have learned to delegate. There are a lot of master students, and we opened even a PhD program here. So we have students, like senior graduate students, whom you can delegate some tasks to, but still it's not 100%. But then I also see that I can do something in leadership, and probably I may not be 100% pharmacognosy researcher by the end of my career, probably. So I am enjoying the administrative position, and I'm actually looking forward to serve more in leadership positions.
All right, thank you very much. I will leave the floor for other colleagues also to engage you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mariam.
Thank you so much.
We have 3 minutes to return to the main room.
Oh, okay.
A good question. Which do you have any difficulties when returning back from Sweden to Ethiopia? Do you have a shock?
If I had any difficulties
or shock when you came back from Sweden to Ethiopia?
Not a shock kind of difficulty, because I said it was a sandwich program. I was here every year for 3 to 4 months. That helped to avoid the shock. But of course, there were difficulties. As I said, it was a soft landing, but with some challenges. But I wouldn't say I had any shock. Difficulties to readjust, from simple things. Like when I was in Sweden, for example, I didn't carry cash with me. I had all the time my ATM card where I can pay with it everywhere and so on. Here, suddenly I had to remember to carry cash. Simple inconveniences, but which would probably irritate your day. But I wouldn't say anything in the state of shock or in the magnitude of shock.
And the question which there is a question asked usually for females. How did you deal with housework and your job?
Well, in Sweden, as I said, children were going to the daycare during the daytime, and in the evening I had to strictly manage my time and have iron feast routine. Back home, I have some help at home. I have babysitters at home, and help with the cooking and the cleaning. So the house job or the house errands are not 100% on my shoulder. That's the privilege of being back home. You can have help. You can hire help.
So can we say that you were more comfortable in leaving your children during work time when you are in Ethiopia?
Yeah, well, there is more time. I have more time for my work, but I miss spending time with my children. For example, after work in Sweden, 100% of the time I'm with them, whether I'm cooking or I'm cleaning and so on. They're around, they're with me, and I'm spending time with them. Here, because there is help, there is extra help. I may stay late at work. When I come back, they're asleep. In the morning, I take them to school, but then, I miss spending time with them. So from both places, there is an advantage and there is a limitation. So in Sweden, I was tired physically. I was all consumed up physically. I was tired, but then I enjoyed my children to the fullest. Here, okay, I have help. That help gives me more time, makes me less tired physically, but then it takes a little bit out of the enjoying together or doing things together with your children.
Thank you, Mariam. We have 30 seconds if any of participants have a question. Okay, thank you very much. We can go now to the main session.